$48,000. That's the number on the quote in her hand for a full mouth of dental implants. And it's the reason she's on her phone at 11 at night, looking up a country she has never been to, feeling a little foolish about it. She isn't foolish. The same work, advertised in Istanbul, is $4,800. Anyone who can subtract would look. You would look. But there's a question underneath the one she thinks she's asking, and it's why she's still scrolling instead of sleeping. Not, is Turkey safe? Not, is it worth it? Who decided 48,000? Not who billed her. Who said it? Because she asked. She asked the office, and the answer was the office's fee. She asked her insurer, and the answer was what they would reimburse. A different number and not the one on her paper. So she went looking for the list, the national schedule, the document that says what this costs in America. There isn't one. That is not a gap in her paperwork, and it would not be one in yours. There is no national price for a dental implant. For almost everything else in her body, there is. For a hip, a scan, an ordinary office visit, the government publishes a fee schedule, and most insurers line up behind it. You can look those up tonight. For the thing happening inside her mouth, nothing. Every office names its own number, and the only ceiling is whatever her plan feels like paying. So the first answer to why it costs $48,000 is this: because nothing stops it. Which sounds like an accusation. It isn't, not yet. Nothing stops it describes the room. It doesn't say who built the room that way. Something had to make dentistry the one part of American medicine with no price authority standing over it at all. One part of your body priced by nobody. That something is older than she is. It's older than you, and older than almost anyone who has ever opened a dental bill and flinched. Around 1840, the first dental school in America opened, and it opened as its own separate institution because the medical college beside it would not take dentistry in. That is the moment. Not a policy, not a vote. A door that didn't open, and a profession that went and built its own building down the street. Everything after that inherited the geometry. Separate schools, separate licenses, separate billing, and eventually separate insurance. A whole parallel system for one part of the body, running alongside the one that covers the rest of it. It is why the card in your wallet works for your ribs and stops at your teeth. But a 19th century snub is not enough to explain a bill in 2026. Institutions drift back together all the time. Something had to hold the split open for 180 years. Something did. In 1965, when the Federal Retirement Health Program was written, a clause went into the text barring it from paying for the care, treatment, or replacement of teeth. Not a rule that was passed over or forgotten or ran out of budget, a sentence written on purpose that took the mouth out. And that sentence still stands, which is why the largest dental bill of most people's lives arrives at the program built to protect them from exactly that kind of bill, and bounces. Therefore, the split stopped being an accident of history and became law. But she is not on that program. She is 58 and she has private dental insurance from her job that she has paid into for years. Whatever happened in 1965, surely the plan on her desk is real insurance. Look at what that policy actually promises. Hers and the one sitting in your drawer. Her plan has an annual maximum, and there is a good chance it is around $1,000. The Dental Association itself says that ceiling was set roughly 40 years ago, near 1985, and it has barely moved since. If it had simply kept pace with inflation, it would sit near $3,100 today. It didn't move. And as of last year, about a third of dental plans still stop somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500. Sit with what that means against a $48,000 quote and against whatever number is on your own plan. It isn't insufficient coverage. It's a different product wearing the word. Insurance, the real kind, is built to catch the catastrophe you could never save for: the fire, the wreck. Her dental plan is built to catch the cleaning. It pays small and predictable bills up to a low ceiling and then simply stops, and it was never designed to do anything else. So the money side is settled. She is effectively uninsured for the thing she actually needs, and if your plan carries a number like hers, so are you. But a ceiling frozen for 40 years is a strange thing to survive 4 decades of everyone noticing. Somebody must have tried to fix this. They did. In 2021, Congress proposed adding a dental benefit to the federal program at last, the first serious attempt to undo the 1965 sentence. It got close enough to be written down. And then the final framework quietly removed it, after pressure from the industry that does well when the gap stays exactly where it is. That is the part she cannot unknow. Neither can you now. The room isn't the way it is because nobody looked. It's the way it is because when someone reached for the light switch, a hand came out and stopped them. But an industry defending a gap is still an abstraction. It doesn't explain why her quote specifically says 48,000 instead of 30. For that, you have to look at who owns the chair she'd be sitting in. 20 years ago, most dentists owned their own practice, about 85% of them. By recent count, that has slipped to roughly 73, and private equity firms have been the fastest moving buyers in the gap. Here is the part that lands on her paper. When a private equity firm buys a dental office, one peer-reviewed study found its sticker prices rose about 3%. The rates it had already negotiated with insurers did not move at all. Read that twice because it is the whole mechanism in one sentence. The list price went up, the insured price didn't. If you are paying cash, you are the only one who felt it, which means the increase falls almost entirely on the person paying cash. On a $48,000 job with a plan that caps near $1,000, that person is her. On your quote, it is you. And she cannot even compare because nobody publishes these numbers. There is no shelf tag. The same work can cost far more in one zip code than a few miles away, and she will not see her number until she is already in the chair. You will not see yours any earlier. So now the room is fully lit, and it is worse than an accusation because there is no villain in it. A split from 1840, a sentence from 1965, a ceiling frozen in 1985, a repair killed in 2021, an owner with a reason to charge more, and a silence that lets it. Not one of those was aimed at her. All of them land on her. Which is the exact moment the phone comes back out at 11 at night. And from here, I am going to stop saying she because if you are still watching this, you are almost certainly holding a version of the same piece of paper. Once you understand that nothing in that room is going to move for you, $4,800 and a flight stops being a reckless idea. It starts being the only arithmetic you have left. And that is where I have to be as honest about the other number as we just were about this one. 4,800 is real. It just isn't a price, it's a scope. Before an implant can go in, the bone often has to be built up first. And one study of empty jaw segments found that groundwork was needed in about half of them. Read that carefully. That is per segment of jaw, not per patient. But something that happens at half the sites you are paying for is not a rare surprise to you. It is a standing line item, and a standing line item that common sits outside a package price because a package is written for the mouth you might have, not the mouth you do. In the upper jaw, that groundwork runs into a sinus, and there the honest number cuts the other way. One meta-analysis found the membrane tears in about 3 out of 10 of those lifts, but when it is repaired, survival barely moves. Around 98% either way. The tear isn't the disaster, it's the invoice. Then comes the one nobody budgets, and it isn't surgery at all. By the book, bone has to heal around an implant before the teeth go on, at least 3 months in the lower jaw, up to 6 in the upper. So your plan is not one trip, it is 2. And here I have to tell you what I don't have. There is no official root level average flight cost we could stand behind, so we are not going to invent one. Price your own 2 round trips and your own hotel nights and add them yourself. An honest blank beats a confident guess. So both numbers are now open and neither one of them is your bill. But every line so far, on both sides, has quietly assumed the same thing, that the day goes right. There is one thing left, and it lives outside both scopes. Over 20 years, one meta-analysis put implant survival at about 88 to 92%, as low as 78 once you count the patients who vanish from follow-up. So somewhere between 1 in 5 and 1 in 8 will need to be dealt with. And the early kind of failure, the sort where an implant never properly fuses, shows up while the bone is still healing. If you flew home, that is precisely the window you spend thousands of miles from the person who placed it. What that cost depends entirely on where you are standing when it happens. In 2022, about 1,000 UK dentists were surveyed. 94% had already seen patients back from treatment abroad. 65% of them put the repair bill at £500 or more, and 1 in 5 said over $5,000. Charged at home prices, against a plan that stops near $1,000 a year. And underneath the money is a question that isn't really a number at all. In that same survey, about 93% of those dentists said what worried them was continuity of care, more than the quality of the work, more than the difficulty of complaining. Not the surgery, the after. The UK regulator says the quiet part, in its own patient guidance, it cannot guarantee that an organization like itself exists where you are going. So the thing that decides whether any of this was a good idea for you was never the operation. About 1 in 8 implants develops a slow infection around it, and higher still under stricter diagnostic criteria. It is treatable, but only if someone catches it early, because it can sit silently for years. The variable is not your surgeon. It is who is still looking at your mouth a year later, which is the one line in this entire story that you can actually move before you get on a plane. Accreditation is checkable. It is a full on-site inspection by outside surveyors covering safety, sterilization, and record keeping, renewed every 3 years, and the accrediting body publishes who holds it. A badge on a homepage is not a name in a register, and the regulator's own questions are plain enough to read out loud. Is the dentist registered where they practice? Is there a written plan and a quote after a real in-person examination? Not a guess from photos you emailed. Is the work guaranteed, and for how long? Is there a route to complain if it isn't? And the one that matters most, who provides the aftercare and how? That last question is the only part of this whole thing you can settle before the flight instead of after. So here's where you are. The $48,000 was built by a room nobody is standing in. The $4,800 is a scope, not a price. And the line that decides which of the two was the expensive one is a line neither quote contains. I am not going to fill that line in for you, not out of caution, because it has your mouth, your calendar, and your risk in it, and none of those are mine to price. Subscribe, the real cost of care, no clinic ads. You shouldn't have to go broke to feel whole.